She would openly say that she was the cutest. She even made it a rule for other members to tell her she's cute. Seriously, she was known as one of the most narcissistic idols there ever was, and was once even voted as one of the most hated women by other women. But is there actually more to her story than that? Let's find out. In this episode of Otaku Files, we talk about the very cute Michishige Sayumi. Most of us outside of Japan may not be aware of some of the more interesting personalities within the Japanese otaku landscape, so I thought I'd do a little video series and try to shed some light on these individuals. This is Otaku Files. Let's be honest, we all know idols are cute. In fact, that's typically what one of their main selling points would be. Now, within Japanese society, showing humility is considered basic good manners. On the other hand, perceived arrogance would be actively punished. Just to emphasize, we're talking within the Japanese cultural context. So unless it's obviously some kind of joke, I doubt you'll come across many idols that would openly say that out of everyone, that they were the cutest. Well, in this video, we're going to talk about one of those idols. Meet Michishige Sayumi, former member of Morning Musume, one of Japan's most well-known idol groups. Sayumi, or Sayumin as she's affectionately called, was a part of Morning Musume's 6th generation, and became well known, among other things, for her narcissistic comments and for roasting people on TV shows. This includes her senpais and even celebrities not even associated with the idol world. She definitely didn't pull any punches. And no, this wasn't exactly viewed as acceptable behavior, especially for a mainstream idol. As a result, many people didn't really like her, and Sayumin would often find herself being in polls for being the most disliked, most annoying, or even the most hated celebrity. Now, hearing all this, you might assume that she was trying to destroy her own career or something, and maybe even ended up damaging the reputation of Morning Musume. But in actuality, Sayumin cared a lot about Morning Musume, and in fact, that's exactly why she behaved this way. We'll talk more about that a bit later. Sayumin is from the city of Ube, which is located in the prefecture of Yamaguchi. Although she has a reputation of being a narcissist, she was apparently a very quiet and reserved kid. Sayumin was more of a loner type, and said she didn't have any friends in elementary school, and that all she needed was her family and bugs. Yep, bugs. She says her playmate was either her sister or a bug. I'm sure the bug didn't have much choice. Oh, and apparently she really liked doing arithmetics. Like I mentioned, Sayumin had siblings, and being the youngest, she would often do what they did. And this is actually how she started getting into music, including Morning Musume. Her sister was actually a fan of them, and together with Sayumin would repeatedly watch their music videos and listen to their albums, dancing and singing along. Sayumin also became a fan of Asayan, the talent search reality show, which also showed member auditions for Morning Musume. She explains at some point she became a bigger fan of Morning Musume than even her sister, and naturally started to think about joining Morning Musume herself. But she didn't really believe it was possible. That would change once she entered middle school and made her first human friend, who would encourage her to go for it. One day, her brother informed her that they were holding auditions, and thanks to her friend, she found the courage to go for it. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole audition process, but just know it wasn't exactly easy to get into Morning Musume. Thousands had applied, but in the end, Sayumin, along with Kamei Edi and Tanaka Reina, managed to pass. Although their reaction to the news was famous for being quite flat. In a later interview, Sayumin says that it was probably just because they were young, and at least in her case, looking at the other two, she just thought that this was how girls from Tokyo react, and that she should react in the same way. I'm also going to guess that her being the youngest sibling had something to do with that line of thinking. Sayumin would become a member of Morning Musume's 6th generation in January 2003. Although Sayumin managed to pass and get into the idol group of her dreams, the celebrations didn't last that long. The reason? Because she was comparing herself to others and ended up losing confidence in herself. There was something this was also probably related to: her singing ability, or the lack thereof to be more precise. Yep, this was pretty well known, something which Morning Musume's producer Tsunku also acknowledged during the audition. And unfortunately it seems this is why Sayumin was also not given many solo parts within songs. But she did take singing lessons and put in a lot of effort into singing practice, which was recognized by those around her, including Tsunku. Now, something which Sayumin used to do to try and boost her self-confidence was to find and say something positive about herself while standing in front of a mirror. Anything would do. For example, saying that the way she looked from behind was cute. She really believed that cuteness was connected to her feelings. This sort of ritual Sayumin did was something her senpais noticed and thought was kind of interesting. Sayumin wasn't originally saying those kinds of things because she was trying to be funny or interesting, but when she came to understand that's how people were viewing it, she decided to say that stuff more publicly and especially on TV. It might have ruffled some people's feathers for sure, but creating this narcissistic character that would also say harsh things that you'd never normally hear a mainstream idol say got her something she knew was important in her line of business. Attention. Singing might not have been her strong point, but she found something else that she could use. But, being in a number of variety shows, Sayumi noticed that she would be asked the same kind of questions by the other guests. Like, how many members of Morning Musume were there? What kind of activities do you do? Are you busy? Each time she legit couldn't believe they were asking her this. Sayumin joined when she was 13 years old, and around that time, everyone knew about Morning Musume. They were talked about so much among her classmates that if you missed one TV show where Morning Musume were the guests, you wouldn't be able to follow anyone's conversation the next day. However, around the time Sayumin was starting to appear in variety shows, she came to discover a painful truth. Morning Musume were no longer Japan's top idol group. From Perfume with their smash hit Polyrhythm in 2007 to AKB48 hitting the top spot with River in 2009, the idol scene entered what would come to be known as the Idoru Sengoku Jidai, or the Idol Warring States period. Although Morning Musume were arguably at their peak musically and in terms of their choreo, their platinum era as it's called from 2007 to 2010 saw a strong decline in their popularity as those outside of their loyal fanbase stopped paying attention to them. The public were seemingly no longer interested in idols that were distant perfect icons, as the headlines would be dominated by groups like the quote-unquote idols you could meet, AKB48. This must not have been easy to come to terms with, but faced with this new reality, Sayumin's focus shifted. It was no longer about bringing attention to her anymore, but to Morning Musume. She needed to change the image the group had to make them stand out, and she did so the only way she knew how, by being a narcissist and saying harsh things. Well, obviously she as well as the others put in effort in other areas too, but whether you agree with her methods or not, she definitely caught the public's attention, and it seems she did manage to accomplish what she set out to do. From 2011 to 2014, Morning Musume's colourful era would see a resurgence in their single sales figures, with their singles even managing to dominate the top of the charts. 2012 would also see Sayumin become the leader after member Nigaki Lisa's graduation. Sayumin herself would graduate from Morning Musume on November 26, 2014. Now that Morning Musume was doing well, she felt it was the best time to leave. Apparently, she also mentioned that she wanted to graduate while the quote-unquote being cute was actually true and didn't turn into more of a joke. Not that would ever happen, of course. Sayumin's career did extend beyond Morning Musume. After a hiatus, she would return doing her own solo activities in 2017. However, she would retire from showbiz completely in 2025. I wish her all the best in whatever she's doing now. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sure many of you who have been following this channel for a while might not have expected me to revisit Morning Musume, but looking into Sayumin's story, I knew this was one I needed to cover, but thank you to all those that suggested her. I think she's amazing. She managed to make it work in the idol world despite not being the best singer, and even managed to, dare say, save Morning Musume. Much respect to her, and yes, she is indeed cute. Let me know what other kind of videos you want to see from me, along with your opinions, etc. in the comments section below. Thanks again, guys. Take care. Until next time, peace.